BlogTalkRadio, the world's largest online radio network.
This is the Gridiron Chefs. I am your host, James Greenwood, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. TP Timeless. TP, man, how are you doing this afternoon?
Took off the blazer, loosened up the tie, stepped aside the kitchen. Timeless is alive, man. For all of those people out there that don't know what's going on, please call in. We got the NFC East online today, man. Call in number 917-889-9593. Continue to check out Show Love to the website. Everybody has been showing love to Sports City. Thank you. Feeling pretty good this afternoon, bro. How you feeling?
Well, football's only a day away. Hall of Fame game coming right up. Football season is right around the corner. I am excited. But until then, we'll be breaking down division by division every single week, getting ready for the NFL season. And this has got to be the most difficult division to pick, and that is the NFC East, because it is the hardest division in all of football. I mean, top to bottom, there's nothing harder. You've got the Super Bowl champs in this division. You've got the Dallas Cowboys with a revamped secondary, and you've got the Philadelphia Eagles, labeled the Dream Team last year, came out the gate a little rough and then started to really hammer at home. So nobody really knows what's going on with this division, but we're going to break down the offseason. We're going to go through the schedule. We're going to try to figure out exactly who's going to be the favorites to win this division this year and exactly why they're going to be so. So TP, man, how you feeling about that?
Oh, well, it is on our side of the country right here, the East Coast type of football, even though Texas is in the middle of the country, but still yet, big blues out here. Rest in peace to my father. He was a diehard Redskin fan, and I really want to see what the Eagles got up their sleeve because, it's always been stated, like I say, as a Michael Vick being a starter, he misses the playoffs, he makes the playoffs, he misses the playoffs, he makes the playoffs, and actually this is the time that he's supposedly supposed to make the playoffs. So I want to see how interesting Philly makes it. Do they make it by a wild card or do these guys win the division? But we'll get into that, so I can't wait.
All right, well, the call-in number is 1-917-889-9592 if you want to come in and join us and chat some NFC East. But until then, it's time to do what we always do, and we're going to start with the bottom of the division, as we always do, and that's with the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins lost quite a few pieces coming out of free agency this year. They lost both starting safeties in LaRon Landry and O.J. Otagwe, but those two were replaced by Snar Jackson and Brandon Merriweather, two guys who played rather well at the beginning of their careers and tapered up a little bit, but I think in this defense they should be able to continue to play well. They lost Jabbar Gaffney and Dante Stallworth, but replaced them with Pierre Garçon and Josh Morgan. And you got to really wonder if Josh Morgan is that one-year wonder, or if he's going to continue to play well now that he's in a different system. And they lost outside linebacker Rocky McIntosh, who didn't really play very well once they moved to the 4-3. He was a selection back when they were running the 4-3. He never really got his way into playing nearly as well as he was expected to, playing in the 3-4. So that's why that's gone. They're replacing him with a few different players, but more than likely we're going to see Jonathan Goff pick up the middle linebacker position. But before we go too far into this, we do have a caller from the 203-979. You are on the air. How you doing?
What's up, bro? It's your worst nightmare.
I ain't scared of you, son. I ain't scared of you. But welcome, my friend. Welcome. And we're right now we're going through and we're going over who they lost, who they picked up. They also picked up Cedric Griffin, which should really help out that secondary quite a bit. They picked up Neil Rakers. What's that?
What team is it, the Giants?
No, we're talking about the Redskins. We always start at the bottom of the division, so you got a long way till we get to the Giants.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Redskins picked up Cedric Griffin, who should be a little bit of a help to that secondary. it was a little bit of a weak spot in that defense that otherwise was playing rather well. And finally, they lost a backup defensive end / defensive tackle, Cedric Golston, but that's not really a major loss for them. So before we get into the draft, I'm going to go to you first, TP. They lose. Actually, we'll go to Justin first because we were talking about this yesterday. They lost both of their starting safeties in LaRon Landry and O.J. Cowboy. Replaced them with Brandon Merriweather, who did not play very well in Chicago, but played better than average when he was in New England. But they also replaced him with Tanar Jackson, who played rather well in his time in Tampa Bay. Is this something that they should be concerned about going forward?
Well, those are very, very, very comparable safeties to replace guys. I mean, they're not on the same level, but those are guys that you can definitely win games with. They can definitely make some plays. Merriweather has the athletic ability. His problem with New England was pretty much he didn't follow the scheme, kind of like of Ocho Cinco. He kind of tried to do his own thing a lot because he has all the tools. But, Tanar Jackson, he's more of a solid guy, a guy that he's more of a safe pick. He's not going to wow you with athleticism. He's not going to, he's not the best hitter, but he's a good guy you can plug in the hole when a solid starter. He's not a Pro Bowl, but just a solid starter. If you have a good defense like they do, those two safeties will definitely get the job done. I mean, you have teams like the Cowboys and the Redskins. I mean, and the Jets, for example, would kill to have two safeties like that. So they'll definitely get the job done. I like those two guys as a core.
All right, TP. I'm gonna go to the other side of the ball. Your favorite position, the wide receivers. They get rid of Jabber Gaffney and Dante Stallworth, guys who did not really play particularly well with them, and they replaced them with Pierre Garçon, who we don't know what he'll be able to do without the top flight Peyton Manning type quarterback. Well, we saw what he did last year, but come on, we're not comparing any quarterback on this roster to the scrub that he had thrown that Pierre had throwing in the ball last year, Curtis Painter. So let's just kind of skip over that point. But they also picked up Josh Morgan. Is this an improvement for the Washington Redskins in their wide receiving core?
These are good additions. I just want to see if they could click well with the rookie. It all depends on what RG3 comes into the game with. Of course, we know his potential and his talent, but this is his first season in the NFL in one of the tougher divisions in football right now. And there was actually a statement that Moss, let me say it the right way, Santana Moss said that he wants to be dominant, but there's other networks out there that's saying that they think Leonard Hankerson could actually take his position. So I doubt if Leonard could actually have that input on this offense to be a young guy that didn't really get his foot into the ground with his offense yet to catapult over a Santana Moss. But you got Santana Moss, you got Morgan that they just picked up from San Francisco, Pierre Garçon, Leonard Hankerson. They got a good stable at the wide receiver core. If RG3 is efficient enough to get these guys the ball, move the chains, and working in a healthy Chris Cooley without Chris Cooley being injured, they got a good stable for guys that can make plays and catch the ball off the line of scrimmage.
And that's a good point. And I'll just quickly cover the kicker, which is a demonstrated improvement. Neil Rakers is kind of one of those underrated guys who gets bounced from organization to organization, but he plays rather well when wherever he ends up being. So that's something that the Washington Redskins can be a lot more happy with than the guy that he will have eventually replaced there in Washington. So they should be at least scoring a lot more in the red zone once they get there, and even back into the 30s and the 30 and 40-yard lines.
And I actually left off Anthony Armstrong, too, who's actually been a staple with his offense for the past 2 years, too. So he's also another piece to the puzzle. So RG3 does have some weapons. It's just that he has to battle up against some tough teams in their schedule.
Okay, now going over the Redskins draft, they had to trade up the St. Louis Rams. Otherwise, RG3 would have been long gone by then. They could have gone to several other places between there, and there were probably several other teams willing to jump up to that spot, just to be able to get the chance to have Robert Griffin III onto their payroll. So they traded a few picks. I think it was a pair of firsts and a second, if I remember correctly, for Robert Griffin III. Robert Griffin III is a lot like a more mature Mike Vick. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He has the ability to run. He's a little thin though, which is a bit of a concern, at least to me, wondering how he's going to hold up if he really is that running mobile type quarterback, which I don't think I think he'll be a lot more of a pocket guy than Vick was coming out of Virginia Tech. And that I think that'll be the major difference in how their careers start out. Vick was dynamic. I think Robert Griffin can be dynamic too. He has great straight line speed, and he'll be that threat to make the run. But he's also very good at throwing on the run. He can throw from the pocket very well. He's got above average arm strength. I would say even very good arm strength. It's not Matthew Stafford, Jamarcus Russell level arm strength, but it's well good enough to make all the throws and get it there in a timely fashion. So that's one thing that he's really got going for him. In the second round, they pick up a little-known offensive guard prospect, Josh Labrius from SMU. Very strong, very athletic, really fits the mold of what Mike Shanahan looks for in offensive linemen. Kind of the undersized guy who's very athletic. He's also a really high character guy. He makes mistakes, but he really learns from them and really puts the burden of blame onto himself, which means he's somebody that can be very easily coached. Now, I don't expect him to be a day one starter, but perhaps, either midway through this year or going into next year, we could really see this guy take a starting position, which for the round they selected him in is not a bad thing at all. They picked him up in the early round 3, so a little bit of a reach, but not too bad. And I'm going to hit into round 4 real quick as well. Round 4 to pick up Kirk Cousins, the quarterback from Michigan State. Now, if there were two quarterbacks that could be any different from one another, it'd be Kirk Cousins and Robert Griffin III. Kirk Cousins is a guy who came from a pro-style offense, very much a pocket passer. You're not going to see this guy escape from the pocket and start running. He's a guy who has good arm strength. It's not even Robert Griffin style, but it's a good level behind that. He has enough arm to make most of the NFL throws, but you're never going to be dazzled by his arm. And this is where I'm going to stop and ask you guys the first question. First and foremost, and I'll go to TP on this one, RG3 and Kirk Cousins. For a little while during the offseason, there was a big deal about having two starting caliber quarterbacks, and that's the key term. They considered both of these guys starting caliber, and they thought it was a bad move by Mike Shanahan and the Redskins organization for having two guys who would be able to step in right away and be playing, and they thought it would put too much pressure on the rookie Robert Griffin. And obviously now it's not really that big of a topic of discussion, but what do you think about that now?
Well, I really think it's RG3's position. I'm really not even concerned about him having pressure. I'm just worried about if he does start to mess up or decline in play, or just looks like he has like a questionable start where they'll try and put Cousins in and try to make this work. But I'm obviously not caught up in that situation because the backups that they do have, whether it be the quarterback Rick Grossman and Beck, like those two guys, they basically lost their jobs last year the way that they played. The offense really wasn't there for those guys, and this is all a rebuild situation for the Redskins. So one way or another, this quarterback dilemma that they have is going to end up putting a little fire under RG3 or making Cousins work that much harder to be right behind RG3. So this is actually a good thing, in the woods, if you will, for the Redskins right now. Some people might not agree with it, but I think this is a good move by the Washington Redskins.
All right, Justin, you were the one who brought it up yesterday, so I'm going to bring this to you. It shouldn't be a surprise to those who watched him in college that RG3 is being shown as somebody who is holding on to the football too long in training camp, which is something he can't do in the NFL. The pass rushers are too fast, and they're going to be on top of them a lot quicker than they are going to be than they were when they were playing the defenses that he was playing against in Baylor. So do you think this is going to be a major concern going into this season, a high sack number for Robert Griffin III?
Well, yeah, I kind of think it's going to be an issue at the start of the season. I don't think he's going to be able to rectify the situation, being a rookie in the preseason. Maybe the whole preseason, the first couple of weeks of the regular season, he's going to learn once he starts taking some of them hits. But it's something he's going to have to get used to, because I'm pretty sure in college he's used to holding the ball until somebody's open or trying to maneuver his way around. But these guys are going to be coming at him at a different speed, so he's going to have to get rid of that ball. And he's going to learn that fairly quick. But, the learning curve, I don't know. I think it's definitely a problem. I think it's an issue that you want to get out of the system, because you don't want to have a guy like him, and he's going to be he's not a big guy. He's get injured. And like you said, you're talking about the quarterback situation where they have two starting caliber quarterbacks, as they say. We don't know yet. But if he gets injured and then all of a sudden you bring the guy in and all of a sudden Cousins come in and all of a sudden he just lights it up, then you got the controversy. So they're going to have to figure out a way to keep him upright and for him to get rid of that ball a lot quicker, so that way he could deliver some passes to these guys.
And that's a really good point. Now I'm going to kind of go through and cover up the second part of this draft. And in the fourth round, they pick up Keenan Robinson, the outside linebacker from Texas. Could he be the inside guy there as well? Possibly, but he's a big, strong. He's a strong, big speed type of guy. He's 242 pounds. Now he has very good pass rushing moves, but the question really becomes, what is he going to do in this offense? Can he learn to play smart, instinctive football? And that's the big question coming from Keenan Robinson. And I think after a year or two in the NFL, it won't be that big of a concern. But for now, he's going to be a backup. He's going to be a special teams guy running down there, or he may be a special teams guy running down there to get the hit. But I don't think we're going to see too much of him in the starting lineup without some injury concerns going on. In round 5, to pick up Adam Geddes, the offensive guard from Iowa. Iowa is a team and a program since Kirk Ferentz has become their head coach, has really been known to develop NFL caliber offensive lineman. Now, this guy fits the mold of a Mike Shanahan guy as well, undersized, and very athletic. He can block well in space, so it's going to be interesting to see what exactly his role is. It should probably be a backup role, and he really needs to bulk up before he gets into the starting lineup, because he's only 293 pounds, and yes, like I said, it's not that big of a deal with the way Mike Shanahan runs things, but that's still way too small to be under 300 pounds and a offensive guard of all things. In round 6, they pick up Alfred Morris, the running back from Florida Atlantic. He's probably going to be a fullback in this offense. We saw him play a few snaps at fullback in the Senior Bowl. That versatility should really help. But he's definitely more of an in-between the tackles type runner. He can blow up the middle a little bit. and his legs are so big they're going to be hard. He's going to be hard to tackle. Get your arms around those things. So that's what I expect from him. Short yard situations and fullback duty for most of his career. And the last guy I'm really going to talk about that because the other two cornerbacks that they drafted are probably more than likely going to be special teams guys if they make the team at all, is Tom Compton, the tackle from South Dakota. And I expect this guy to be a practice squad body for the first few years. He's a very raw prospect. He's got great physical strength, but he doesn't move his feet well. But he might be a guy that is that rare case that jumps from the bottom and slowly works his way through into a starting position eventually. But that's still yet to be seen. Now I'm going to go to you first, Justin, on this. What do you think how do you think they did in the draft? I know RG3 is the big time name in this. But what about everything else? Altogether, what do you think about the Redskins and how they drafted?
I didn't do attention to them too much in the later rounds, but anytime you can get a starting quarterback in the draft that with this type of upside and this type of potential and hype, it's always a good thing, and that's why that'll automatically put them at an A, because now you're talking about this guy being the difference that the Redskins needed for years. So it's definitely their draft can't be worse than an A. So I have to say that. Could you give me the other names that they drafted? I probably know the players, but I just don't know them.
They picked up Josh Labrius from SMU, Kirk Cousins, Keenan Robinson, Adam Geddes, Alfred Morris, the running back from Florida Atlantic, Tom Compton, Richard Crawford, and Jordan Bernstein from Iowa.
Now, I would say this. I don't know too many about those other names, but Cousins, I think because they drafted another quarterback like Cousins, I think that, to me, that downgrades the draft because I think it was a wasted pick. I think you don't draft two guys that you think can actually start in the NFL. I think you want to have the best quarterback you can possibly have, but they could have addressed some other needs with that pick, and I think that's the only negative thing I could say about this draft from a standpoint where you get a guy like RG3 who has so much potential, so much upside, and the city's excited about him, but then you bring in another guy to kind of pressure him that might pressure him enough where he might struggle because he's worried about the guy behind him, the arm behind him. So I don't like that move and what they did in the draft as far as that.
All right, TP. Rather quickly, I'm pretty sure you'll like the RG3 pick, but overall, what do you think about the Washington Redskins in their draft?
I give them a B. I don't want to say B minus, a B plus. I agree with Justin to a certain extent with the two quarterbacks being picked up, but I don't know if that competitive fire will light something under RG3, or if RG3 does come out the gate struggling, worried about Cousins being behind him because he's a caliber quarterback that can come in and make a difference also, but it's better than anything that they had in the stable at the quarterback position from last year. So I think they improved there, and the offensive line issues that the Redskins had last year, you can see that they tried their best to retool as much as possible through the draft to at least get some pieces for now so these guys can grow and to be in better pros moving forward. I don't know if these guys are going to be instant impact offensive linemen, off the jump, but you could tell this was an issue Shanahan's seen last year, and he's trying to address it now. So I want to go with a solid B. I'm not going to go B plus or B minus. I'm not going to say that they did bad or good out of the B grade, but I say it's a solid B. And I agree with Justin on the fact of them picking up Cousins. That's a wasted pick because they could have picked up somebody else elsewhere along the team, whatever may have been a heavy need for them. But right now with RG3 coming into a heavy-spirited division of the NFC East, he's going to have to play with that chip on his shoulder and prove that he can go out there and play football, because if not, you're going to throw Cousins in there, and he's going to be in the fire of a lot of tough teams as well.
All right, well, in my opinion, they did what they really needed to do, and that's get that top flight quarterback. I don't think they could really survive going into another season with Rex Grossman as their starting quarterback and probably with John Beck for that spot as well. That's something that they didn't want to do, and and it also buys Mike Shanahan some time, giving him one or two extra years to help RG3 develop and become more of a contender. And really, if you take RG3 out, or if you take RG3 and put him into that situation they had last year, they might possibly have been a playoff team. I mean, not necessarily, but that's how close this division was last season. That if you replace a caliber guy like Rex Grossman and throw in a guy of the caliber of RG3, it could make all the difference in your season. So that's something that you should really take into account. On top of that, though, I'm going to disagree with you guys on the Kirk Cousins pick, and we do have a caller calling in from the 812. We'll get to you in just a second. I think that with a guy with the frame and the propensity to run like RG3 has, you don't want to be in a Michael Vick situation where you're going to see your guy probably get knocked out of the game and probably knocked out of 2 or 3 games once or twice a season and having nothing to back him up with. So bringing Kirk Cousins in is an insurance policy against Robert Griffin getting injured. And honestly, I think he could hold his own and be a good backup, a Sean Hill type backup who can win at least half the games, and that can save your season. So I like those picks. I'm not crazy about the offensive linemen, but I've long since stopped complaining about Mike Shanahan and his offensive lineman selections because they tend to work out in the end anyway. So with that said, I'm going to give them a solid B, B plus. It's Robert Griffin is the be all and end all of this draft. Everybody else is probably going to be special teams guys and backups, with the exception of maybe Josh Labrius. But we do have a caller from the 812. Caller, what's your name and what do you want to talk about?
Hey, how's it going today? This is Juice Japan. First of all, I want to say great show, gentlemen. And I wanted to kind of shift the attention and get your insights on the defensive side of the ball in the NFC East. I'd like to know, who do you think, which team in the NFC East has the best front seven, and which team in the NFC East has the best secondary against the pass? I'm going to jump off here and listen. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, Juice. So the question he wants to throw around is who has the best front seven, and which team has a better secondary for covering passers. Now, the second question I think is the easiest, so I'm going to start with that one. The best secondary is by far the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they have 2 starting caliber number 1 corners. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, when properly motivated, could be that number 1 nearly lockdown corner. And then they've also got Nnamdi Asomugha, who can be one of the top 2 in the league if they use him correctly. In the safety position, they've started moving things around, but Nate Allen is a great pass defending safety. Now, if you're asking him to come up and defend the run, that's another major problem. But as far as controlling the pass and being good in that deep third coverage, Nate Allen is one of the better ones in this division when we're talking about it that way. So that's what I'll say about that. And with the front seven, this is kind of interesting to me. With the front seven, you have to say there's a lot of teams because the Eagles have a great front four, but so do the Giants, and I think the Giants' front four is considerably better. But D'Amico Ryans in the 4-3 is a Pro Bowl caliber inside linebacker if he stays healthy, which the Giants, while their linebacking core is improved, you're going to have a hard time saying that there's a Pro Bowler within that linebacking core. So that's something that is a little bit difficult for me. And then the Redskins, you can't really poo-poo what they've got in the front seven as well, but I don't think it's anywhere near what the Giants and the Eagles have. And then you're looking at the Cowboys with DeMarcus Ware and the stable of defensive linemen that they have, which play rather well. I mean, they're not gigantic names by any stretch, but they're still guys who are very effective. And really, you could also, now that I'm thinking about it, make an argument for the Dallas Cowboys being the best secondary if they gel well, because Brandon Carr was a very good borderline Pro Bowl guy in Kansas City. You've got a very good high caliber cornerback coming in from the draft in Morris Claiborne. You picked up two very good safeties as well. So that's a little bit more difficult. But I'd say if it was gun to my head, I'd say the Giants probably have the best front seven because they are deep at the defensive line position. They have Shaun Rodgers, they have Marvin Austin. Both those guys can collapse the pocket as well as knife through. I would say that Justin Tuck, Osi Umenyiora, Jason Pierre-Paul, you're three deep at the defensive end position, and even if you were in third and long, you could always stick Jason Pierre-Paul in at the under tackle position as well. And I just don't see that third defensive lineman that or I should say the fourth defensive lineman that the Eagles have. I'm just not sure exactly where that extra talent's coming from. So I would say that the Giants have the best front seven, the Eagles have the best secondary, and that's pretty close with Dallas and how they have their secondary set up. But I'm going to pass this around. I'll go to you first, TP, on this one. Best front four, best secondary in the NFC East.
Oh, it's tough. It's a jump off between secondaries with the Cowboys and the Eagles because of the addition of Claiborne, this guy coming up there with Brandon Carr being one of the two of the corners that they have out there in Dallas, and makes it that much more interesting. And also the Eagles with their secondary with Asamoah and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie also. So I'm torn, but I give the edge to the Eagles just because these guys have done more in the NFL right now, so I'm giving it to him before I can give Claiborne any run, because Claiborne hasn't played a down of NFL football yet, even though his upside is looking good, and you can't really say too much about him because he's all of the accolades that he's had while he was in college. You got to give him that much credit, but he's going to be seeing some tough receivers, game in, game out basis, especially going up against the Giants dealing with Cruz and Nixon and company, and the Eagles with their receivers also, and depending on what the Redskins bring on with their receivers, which we just went over also, it's going to be a very tough division to give the Cowboys the edge right now. So I give the Eagles the edge in the secondary. Front seven is so tough. Juice, I give you credit for this question. This is a very tough question within this division because if you look at this division, they all have a good front four, but looking at their linebacker cores on all four teams, very questionable. Very questionable. These guys have enough ability to make plays, but there's no thoroughbreds out there. I mean, you got D'Amico Ryans out there with Philly, but he hasn't played football in quite some time. So I have to, by default, give the Giants the edge also because these guys have the experience. They've gotten far within a 5-year range. They've been to 2 Super Bowls and 1. So I give these guys the edge being the New York Giants because of their experience alone.
All right, Justin, what do you think? Thus far, me and TP are in agreement. Do you agree with us? Is it the Eagles secondary the best in the division and the Giants front seven?
Front seven. You know what? I agree with him, but I think the Cowboys has more potential in the secondary. Well, the Eagles have. It's tough. Both the safeties I'm not impressed with, both team safeties, but as far as the corners, you have to go with the Eagles because, like he says, is the veteran. But the fact that I like the potential of the Cowboys makes me excited. So I go with the Cowboys just because of the potential and what they have now and how many years they have to come. But the front four, yeah, you got to go with the Giants because of what they've been able to do in the postseason and the dominance of Pierre-Paul. But I like the Eagles' front four as well. They got a lot of sacks between them as well. So, you know, I don't think you go wrong with either one, but you definitely go with the Giants because how they dominated in the postseason for at least 2 Super Bowl runs. So I give them the edge, but those Eagles is right there on their butts. So those are the two for the best front four and the best secondaries to me.
Okay, so it's time to go over the Washington Redskins schedule. So they start the season, 3 out of the first 4 games are on the road. They go to New Orleans, to St. Louis, and guys, I'm only going to go through this once, so make sure you guys are taking notes and because I don't want to go game by game because we are running a little bit behind on the schedule. So we're going to, like I said, 3 out of the first 4 are on the road. They go to New Orleans, to St. Louis. Cincinnati goes to Washington in week 3. The Skins go to Tampa Bay in week 4. Atlanta travels to Washington in week 5, and I definitely want to note that one. Atlanta is going to Washington in week 5. Minnesota is going to Washington in week 6. They play the Giants in New York in week 7. Week 8, they are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers at Pittsburgh. In week 9, they are playing the Carolina Panthers at Washington. In week 11, they are playing Philadelphia at Washington. Week 12 is Philadelphia at Washington. Week 13 is they're going on to Dallas. And hold on, I lost my train of thought. But after they play Carolina at Washington, then Philadelphia comes to town. Then they go to Dallas. They play the Giants next in Washington. Baltimore goes to Washington the week after. Then they finish out the season at Cleveland, at Philadelphia, and Dallas visits them to end the season. I might as well go first while you guys gather your thoughts. I think they can probably start out as well as possibly 4-0 to start the season. Who knows what New Orleans is going to come out the gate looking like. St. Louis is a decent team, and they could potentially win, but they could also potentially lose. That's kind of a coin flip against St. Louis. Cincinnati, I'm not sold on Cincinnati, to be completely honest with you. I think they beat up on a bunch of scrub teams last year. I think that could be a win for the Washington Redskins. As far as the Minnesota Vikings, that should be a winnable game for them as well, as long as RGIII comes out the gate rather well. Then they play the Giants, which should be a loss. The Eagles or the Steelers, which should be a loss. Carolina could go either way. I'll give the slight edge to Washington. Actually, you know what? I'll give Carolina that game. They lose to Philadelphia, lose to Dallas. They win against the Giants at home. They lose to Baltimore, beat Cleveland, lose to Philadelphia, and I'll give them one at Dallas as well. So you're looking pretty much, if you are a Redskins fan, probably about a 7-win area. You give or take 1 or 2 games, but it should be right in that 7-win area. TP, I just went over the schedule, but instead of going game by game, kind of give us an overview of what you think about the Redskins schedule.
So from what you're telling us, the first 6 games, the Redskins are going to go 5-1. Possibly, actually, because New Orleans could easily be a win. St. Louis could easily be a win. Cincinnati could easily be a win, and I do think they will win that one. Tampa Bay could be a win, could be a loss. That one can go either way. And Atlanta on the road is a much worse team than they are at home. So I could give them that one as well. And then Minnesota, they could theoretically, now I'm not saying they're going to do this, but
they have the potential to start the season 6-0 before going into the really difficult part of their schedule with the in-division schedule and the harder parts of the NFC North. So there's a potential for them to start out 6-0.
So you give them 6-0, but the next 10 games they go. Oh, wait, potential 6-0, and in the next 10 games they win 1 and lose 9.
Very possible, considering their schedule. They beat Cleveland. They beat Cleveland, and they could beat New York once or twice. But every other team has their number except for Carolina.
Out of the first 4 games, I say the best is a 2-2 situation, just because they got 3 games on the road, and I know that the Saints are missing Jonathan Vilma, one of the anchors on their defensive side of the ball, but it's too tough to try and slow down Drew Brees in that dome. I don't even know how that could be a comparable situation to throw the Saints under the bus for a Redskins team with a new quarterback in RG3. So you're basically giving RG3 the edge over Drew Brees at home on a season opener.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that there's going to be a lot of confusion in that locker room, and there's a potential for a win. And let's not forget they're missing a lot of defensive players. The defense is what would win them that game if they do win that game.
Okay,
but
so I'm just to get away from this debate, I'm going to agree with you. I see a 6 or 7 win season for the Redskins, but that first 6 window that you have for the Redskins, 5-1 or 6-0 possibly, like potential, I'm extremely shaking my head at that. That is a very tough, measurable call. At best at the 6-game mark for them, I see them 3-3 at best. At best, these are some questionable games, and they could also shake up and lose that game in Minnesota too. So we'll see how that pans out. But that first start out for the Redskins, I understand that you're trying to be optimistic for these guys, and how big of a fan you are for AJ Green, and for you to overlook him also is very questionable too. So I agree with you, like you said, 7 or 6 wins on the season, but the startup is that's a questionable gesture for me also.
All right, Justin. I'm saying that we're both saying right around 7 wins, give or take a couple. What's your thoughts on the Washington Redskins going into the season?
I will have to say that'll be the most, but I think they'll be around 5 or 6. I'm going to agree with TP on some of the wins that you try to give them. I think it's going to be you're saying that the Bengals, you're not sold on them, but I still see a lot more on the Bengals than I do the Redskins to give the edge to the Bengals. Anytime you have a premier receiver like AJ Green, I'm very high on him and his ability to go up and get the ball and make plays. I'm very high on him. Anytime you have a guy like that and a guy that can dominate a game, and then you got a quarterback who's already played in the league for a year and is pretty confident and in a pretty solid defense, I still think I give the edge over the Bengals. Another game, I can't remember the other game that you gave them, but
it was probably Atlanta. I think that.
Yeah, I'm not going to give them that. I think those are winnable games for the Redskins, but not. They're more so on the. It's possible, but I don't think they're going to win it. So it's not like I don't think the games are 50-50. I just think those games are more like 70-30. But at the very best, I think they go 7-8. But my guess is they go 5 to 6 wins at the most. I mean, at the most. But that's the one I'm strongly leaning towards. So yeah, they just have a lot of work to do. I think they have potential, but this kid RG3 is going to have a phenomenal season. I mean, it's going to have to be better than what Cam Newton did last year, I believe, for them to be over 500. So I think that's the type of season they're looking forward.
All right, the call-in number is 1-917-889-9592. If you want to come in and talk with us, make sure to hit that 1 button so I know you want to talk. If not, continue to sit there on the line and listen. But at this point in time, we are going to move on to the second to last team in that division. which is the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys made a lot of moves this offseason. We'll start in the secondary because that's where the biggest meat of this whole thing is. They decided to get rid of Terrence Newman and cornerback Alan Ball, and they replaced it with Brandon Carr, who is going to be the starter in that situation. And also in the first round, Morris Claiborne. That's an undoubted increase in talent there. They lost the safety Abraham Elam and replaced it with Rodney Poole, who should be a starter in that situation. So we'll start there. And I'll go to you just on the question. This secondary has been the bane of the existence of the Dallas Cowboys forever now. And the one thing about Rob Ryan's defense is that they really need corners that can cover and that can press to be able to be successful. If they don't have those, then they're going to get beat deep a lot. And I think we saw that with the Dallas Cowboys last year. Sure, they were blitzing a lot, they were getting a lot of sacks, but a lot of times they were getting beat up top as well. Is this enough? Or is the secondary there? Is this the secondary that they've been looking for years? That one's to Justin.
Any other questions?
Is Justin still there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I didn't hear the question.
I said, is this the secondary that the Dallas Cowboys have been looking for years?
Oh yeah, this is by far the secondary that they've been looking for since they had, Dion and can't remember the other guy, but it's been a while since they had young talent that they're excited about, and this is what I like about this secondary. The reason why I'm high about it is you have a cover guy with speed who can run with just about anybody and has great ball skills. And what's his name? I'm drawing a fart right now. The rookie.
I'm sorry. Who are you looking for?
I'm sorry.
Who are you looking for?
The rookie corner.
Morris Claiborne.
Yeah, Claiborne. Yeah, you have a great ball skills, kind of a big guy for a corner, and got speed in him. And then you have a guy who's probably perfect. He's probably the perfect corner to me in the NFL at number 2 to be a number 2 corner. He's the guy that can lock down most of the number 2 guys in the league and make some plays on the ball and just not get beat a lot. So you have 2 guys who can pretty much handle their job, and they kind of mirror what the Jets have over there in New York when you're able to play against the pass fairly well. You don't have to really, if you're going against non-talented wide receivers, you're pretty much going to take them out the game. I think they have that type of talent in that secondary. So this is a secondary that the Cowboys have been looking for. Now you just got to hope they go out and do it, and I think they will. I think this is what's going to propel the Cowboys to actually win a playoff game or two. And I think they're going to be in good position to win some games and even have a chance to win the division. So this is going to be interesting. I'm really going to like watching the NFC East this year, watching some of those battles.
Wow.
All right, TP. I'm going to bring this to a different. This is the question that Juice brought up in the chat room, and I think this is a really interesting question. They pick up Kyle Orton in the offseason. Yes, John Kitna, old, retired, gone from the Dallas Cowboys organization. So I have to ask, if Tony Romo has a bad start to the season, gives up a couple of games, kind of has the start of the season that they did last year, where
I'll answer it now before you even do the speculation. No,
hold on. That's not the question. That's not the question. I know where you're going. That's not the question. But I'm asking about the fans. Are the fans going to be yelling for Kyle Orton?
No.
If he starts out bad this season?
No. Romo's been there, guy. Everything that Romo's been through, and out here, Justin could tell you, there's a ton of Cowboys fans out here in Connecticut. Like they may talk a lot of junk about Romo, but if they had a gun to their head and had to pick, deciding game, whether it be week 16 or week 17, deciding game, and Romo's messing up week 13 through 15 leading up to them games, I guarantee they still go with Romo before Orton. Orton has been questionable in his last couple of stints in the NFL, being with the Chiefs and the Broncos. They have to stick with the guy that knows the system and the guy that they believe in to make this go down. And they go as far as Tony Romo takes them. This is the year Romo actually has to step up to the call and have that type of season. Now, I said wow to what Justin said on these guys winning the division, and looking at this team, it is within their grasp. I'm not going to say that they're
going to win the division. I said they have a chance to win the division.
Potential, right. I agree. Yeah. I'm agreeing with that. I'm saying that they do have the potential of winning the division, looking at what they have right now. But if they do, it's not going to be off the arm of Kyle Orton because Romo slips up, let's just say 5 or 6 games. They're going to have to do it off of Tony Romo. There's no speculation of Orton getting in there unless somebody injures Romo once again. That's the only way that this guy sneaks in a game.
All right, we do have another caller in queue. Rudy, how you doing today, and how you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Pretty good, gentlemen. I'm just calling in, just tuning into the show. Kind of mobile today, so I'll probably be in and out, but I'll chime in as much as I can.
All right. Well, I'm going to go over because they have a ton of off-season moves. They've really been retooling this entire team. They let Kyle Cozier leave for free agency, and they also lost their backup Montre Hollard. They bring in Nate Livings, who will be he will be the starter for this team, and then bring in backup Mackenzie Bernardo, and I'm probably butchering that name. Brady James jumped out, Brady James is out now. They bring in Dan Connor, which I think now a lot of people might not agree with me, but I think this is a bit of an improvement. Now the question that I'm going to let everybody answer this one. Lauren Robinson, the wide receiver, their number 3 wide receiver, is now gone. To my knowledge, they didn't replace him with anybody significant, which leaves Des Bryant with his off-the-field issues and Miles Austin to be the number 1 and the number 2 guy in Dallas. And obviously, there's always Jason Witten. But for the past few years, the Dallas Cowboys have been really a 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end type group. And then sometimes they go into their power eye package and things like that nature. So I'm going to start with Rudy since he's fresh off the street here. We're gonna ask you this: does the passing game for the Dallas Cowboys take a hit without Lauren Robinson?
I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be a big drop off, a substantial drop off. I mean, there could potentially be. I highly doubt it, only because you still have Jason Witten and you got Jonathan Phillips, their backup tight end. They can probably use him. They can also use him in a 2 tight end set to be that sort of second receiver inside. Maybe not as a slot, but as a secondary receiver. They could also use Ogletree as well. I mean, I know he's not. I know he doesn't have the production of, not capable of having the production of Will Robinson, but I mean he's still capable. And Jesse Holley, he had his moments, but To me, if there is a drop-off, it will be at the wide receiver position. I'm not too, but I think that can be compensated with the tight end, especially with Jonathan Phillips possibly be used as like an H-back.
All right, Justin, I'm going to go to you now, ask you the exact same question. What do you see from the Dallas Cowboys wide receiving core and passing game this year? Is it going to be hurt? Because Lauren Robinson was very productive in the back end of that season. Is this going to be a major setback to the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, the only way I think they'll take a step back, they'll be hurt with the Lauren Robinson situation, is if Miles Austin is not healthy, like he was 2 years ago. I mean, the reason why, let's be real, he was a good receiver for this offense, but the reason why is because Miles Austin was out and they needed another guy to go with Des Bryant. When Miles Austin comes back, you have the same, pretty much the same thing, or if not better, when they had most of the season with Lauren Robinson and Des Bryant. So they'll be just fine. And like the other caller said, the tight end will make up for it. Ogletree is just fine playing the slot. If those two guys are healthy, they'll be fine. They just don't have depth now. Now they don't have a guy if one of those guys go down. They've both been known to get injured, so it's probably a problem if they if they go down. But there was talks I've heard, would T.O. go back to the Cowboys, and I was like, there's no way they're going to let that happen. But if one of those guys go down early in this preseason, don't be surprised if you get a call from the big guy upstairs.
All right, TP, I'm going to bring it to you, and he brings up a good question. Okay, right now I would have to imagine Kevin Ogletree is the number 3 guy there in Dallas. Now, if we see an injury to either Des Bryant or to Miles Austin, do we see Terrell Owens back in the Big D?
I hope so. And you know how I'm not a big Terrell Owens fan, and I know that you and him share the same birthday and everything, but I want to see T.O. back out there. I want to see T.O. on a football field until he looks like he's not able to give the NFL a go. I mean, last time we seen him, he was in Cincinnati, and if he didn't, have a bother situation with his legs, he was having an awesome season, and he basically took the light off of Chad Johnson. Let me get it right because he changed his name back. So hopefully they clear the air, get T.O. back down there because when T.O. left, there was a different coach. Now Garrett's running the show, so it's different. So I agree. If Des or Miles Austin gets injured and Ogletree is the guy that has to step up to the core, I don't think that the receivers they have in their core are ready for big-time football, especially up in this division, which we're talking about, that these guys have to be ready to make big-time plays week in and week out. This won't be a one-game basis. The Cowboys have the cameras on them 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Ed Werder, everybody's all over them. So I'd imagine that they would do that, and Romo and T.O. really didn't have that big of a spat, so hopefully these guys can turn around and go to T.O. somewhere down in Allen, Texas, and give this guy a job and tell him to spend that $50 on something else.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Let's be real. I'm sorry to cut you off, but let's be real. What other quarterback did T.O. cry for? That's my quarterback.
Right.
That's my quarterback. He's going to go back to his quarterback, fellas. He's supposed to go back to his quarterback.
Right. In the interest of time, I've got to throw this. I want to throw this question out because it was asked in the chat room, but I want kind of a yes or no answer from each of you. Des Bryant, he has the off the field issues with his mom and everything, and I don't want to get into the thing itself, but I want to talk about on the football field. It seems that every year that he's had an off-field thing, it kind of distracts him for the first few weeks of the season. Does the thing going on off the field with his mother and everything else and the potential charges, does this affect Des Bryant's production in the first half of the year? And I'll go to you first, TP, on this one.
I'm going to be optimistic about this. I want to be optimistic. And everybody that I know out here that's Cowboy fans ain't going to like to hear this, but I think this might be the fire that he needs. There's been so much on his back for the past couple of seasons coming into the start of a season, whether he was in the Highlands Park Mall and he was sagging, he got banned from a mall, and now this situation right here, and before he came to the league, he got kicked out of college football for going to lunch with Deion Sanders. It's been too much on Des Bryant's shoulders, and you had the likes of, Deion still in his corner. You still got Tony Romo going to bat for him. Jerry Jones stuck up for him. Michael Irvin tried to speak for this guy. I think this is the last straw for Des Bryant to have anything, outside of football go bad for him. So I think this might be the last spark to turn his career around. I'm going to be optimistic and say that this might actually push him over the hump instead of him having those, those 4 or 5 big catches in the first half type situation. In the second half, he doesn't show up, and he's letting corners get position on him to break up passes or pick the pass off. I think Des Bryant has to become the horse in the house outside that a lot of people know. He's one of the stronger receivers in the league, and then this is his time. This is his stage right now. So I'm saying that this actually pushes him better than actually has him regress.
All right, Justin, I'm going to ask you for a one-sentence answer. On the field, does this affect his production?
No, I don't think it affects his production. He's still a beast of an athlete. If anything affects his production, the only problem that Des Bryant has, I think, in the NFL is I think he got to improve his conditioning. Because like TP says, he has a lot of he probably has the best first half out of all the receivers in the football league that we know about, that we can remember, and just tails off in the second half. And I think that comes with conditioning. I think that's what he has to work on. I think the off-field problems are behind him, and they'll definitely be behind him by the time the season starts. If he has any more, then we can start talking about, that'll probably be affecting him. And the one way I will say it will affect him is if he pretty much is on a short leash now. So anything that he does during the season might cost him some games, so that might be the only reason it'll affect him. But on the field, I think that what happened so far is behind him, and he'll be fine by the season. But he just got to get his fatigue, and he's got to get his stamina up so he could play 4 quarters of good football.
All right, Rudy, is this a make or break year for Des Bryant?
To me, I think it is, but I will say I will give Des Bryant credit with this. When he came into the NFL, obviously with the history that he had at Oklahoma State, I think he used that fire to showcase who he is and showcase his skills. So I think that if he can at least mirror some of the production that he has in his rookie season, as well as maintain that conditioning to where he can produce all 4 quarters, I think he'll be okay. I don't think he's going to distract him too much. I think because I think it will motivate him as it has in the past. But if it starts adding up, then it could be an issue. But I don't think so now, because I think he has some of the support system. I think he's starting to get the support system that he needs to really focus on football and not put himself in situations that he put himself in the past.
And he just fired his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, too, so that might help.
Well, with that said, we have to get into these draft and the schedule before we move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're down to under an hour left to the program. It just seems like not enough time. But we talked about Morris Claiborne a bit. He's a great cornerback. He can play in any kind of coverage you want. You can ask him to press. You can ask him to play man, and you can ask him to play zone, and everything. And he'll be able to do it all. He's fast. He's got great hands and incredible instincts. So, and he is the cornerback that they've been looking for a long time. And basically the reason why they kept Terrence Newman for so long is the fact they did not have a corner available like Morris Claiborne, and they had to trade a first and second round pick, which is peanuts from what, and I believe they may have had to trade a first round pick from last year. I'm almost sure they did, and that was from that went to the Rams. And I think it was well worth it. This is the window's closing for the Dallas Cowboys, so they needed a top tier pick, and Morris Claiborne is going to be the guy who's going to come in day one and play very well. In the third round, they pick up Tyrone Crawford, the defensive. He'll be a 3-4 defensive end. He's a 5 technique type guy from Boise State. He can hold the run well, but he can also kind of jet through and get to the quarterback. Will he be a starter this year? I think he could be. I think that is fully possible. Unless the other two defensive ends really step up, I can really see him potentially making a start by the end of the season. In round 4, they pick up Kyle Wilbur, the outside linebacker from Wake Forest, a developmental type guy. He has a lot of potential, but we've got to see exactly what he becomes. But he's not very good in pass coverage, but he is rather decent in the pass rush from a standing up position. So it's a guy you might want to look for, but it's not anything. He's not going to be anything spectacular within the first couple of seasons. Matt Johnson, I think, was a massive reach coming out of Eastern Washington. I really believe that this guy is going to be a special teamer for his career. He's got decent speed, but he can tackle in space, and that's something you really want in a special teams guy, and I think that's where he's going to really start making his money as a special teamer. In round 5, pick up Danny Cole, who was the wide receiver, and I also think he was the punter, if I remember, for Virginia Tech. So kind of a dual role. They did lose McBriar this offseason. So I'm not sure exactly where he fits in and what they expect to do with him. But just remember, he does have the potential to punt. And add a little bit of this to the conversation. We could see fake punt situations coming from this guy as well if they decide to use him in punting situations. In round 6, they picked up the tight end, James Hanna from Oklahoma, obviously a backup. His hands aren't where they're supposed to be, but he's kind of a guy who could develop. He'll probably be a practice squad player for the first few years, eventually be picked up by somebody. And finally, another special teamer, Caleb McSturdy from Montana. He played inside linebacker there. Undersized, but can tackle well. And once again, that's kind of what you want for a special teams player. But much like the Redskins, the first 2 picks really make this draft. Nobody else will be starting for them for this team, but they got the piece they need. So, in my opinion, this is a solid B+ draft, and if they win the division off of this, then in my opinion, it's well worth it because success has been rather fleeting for the Dallas Cowboys in the past 5 or 10 seasons. So, TP, I'm going to go to you first on this one. Dallas Cowboys, what do you think about the draft?
Like you just said, if it wasn't for the 2 draft picks, their draft would be pretty questionable. But Claiborne and Crawford, you got to give these guys credit because of the respected colleges that they came from. These guys have a great deal of working with tremendous athletes at their respective schools. So I give these guys, I'm giving them a C+. I'm not giving them a B because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks that they really could have made make or break a situation differently. But I think they more or less had these guys to just, you know, kind of pad each position, whether it be at the wide receiver, the tight end position, you know, the safety and linebacker position. I really think that Dallas could have did better outside of the first two picks. I do take my hat off for them and be able to escape and pick up Claiborne, and also a guy like Crawford who actually, you know, helped Boise State do as tremendous things that they've done in the past 4 years out there also. So I'm going to C+. I'm not going to give them a B, but Dallas definitely could have done better, especially from 4 through 7, even though, you know, it's questionable from round 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it with Justin here first. Justin, Dallas Cowboys, and outside of the first two picks, do you see anybody that will contribute year one?
No, if that's the question, no, I don't see anybody.
Okay, because we have a lot of people on and we're down to 45 minutes left of the show, I do want to. I'll let Rudy. Is there anything else you want? Is there anything you want to talk about as far as the Dallas Cowboys and the draft before we get into the schedule?
I think they had a solid. I think they had an okay draft. To me, and this is just my personal opinion, I think they should have at least addressed the safety position. Because I'm sorry, I don't think Gerald Sensabaugh is the answer. But I mean, I guess because of their salary cap situation, they can only do so much. But I think that's really still glaring on their glaring.
Well, I will say this: the safeties were very hard to come by in this draft. If you didn't get them early, I thought they were going to get Barron, but you know they really wanted to address that corner situation. So after that, they really didn't have anything else they can get. So I figured they would go free agent.
See, Justin makes a great point. The safety position was something that was very rare in this draft. There were two guys that could potentially be starters right away, and then there was a whole bunch of guys who are maybe that type guys. I mean, the only other guy that I could really see being a guy that could potentially start for them was the cornerback out of Montana, and that would be probably a half-year process. So I think they did the right thing, taking the good corner. Rodney Poole is not a bad safety at all. So 1 weak spot in the secondary is not anything to sneeze at. But with that said, I am going to move on to their schedule, and we kind of go in a little bit of hurry up mode here, but the schedule starts off week 1. They go to New York. Week 2, they go to Seattle. Week 3, Tampa Bay visits them in Dallas. Week 4, they play Chicago at Dallas. Week 5, they go to Baltimore. Week 6, they go to Carolina. Week 7, they play Dallas at home. Big trash talk game. Week 8, they go to Atlanta. Week 9, they go to Philly. Week 10, they go to Cleveland visits them in Dallas. And this is kind of where the schedule gets a little easier. They play Washington at home in week 13. Week 14, they play at Dallas. And in week 15, they play Cincinnati. At Cincinnati. Week 16, they play Pittsburgh at home. 17, they play New Orleans at Dallas, and finally they finish up the season with playing at Washington. So I mean, this is a really difficult schedule for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, just about all of their games that should be easy are played on the road, with the exception of the one that they get against Washington at home. Every other game that's at Dallas, Tampa Bay and the one against Washington are the only two. There's three, and there's also the Cleveland game. Those are the only 3 games at home that are not against upper echelon type competition. All of the road games Seattle, which would have been an easy game at home, but Seattle's the hardest stadium to play in. Carolina, it would probably be a pretty decent win for them if they weren't playing at Carolina. Atlanta, if they were at home against Atlanta, it'd be a pretty decent win for them. But in Atlanta, it's a lot harder to play there. Cincinnati should have been a decent win for them. But who knows what Cincinnati might be able to pull off at home. So it's rather difficult to pinpoint a number of wins for this team. But I'm going to go with a 9-win season for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's tough because it's hard to pick out the wins.
Real quick, you kill me with some of these picks. Like, you give the Redskins the edge over the Bengals, and the Redskins is coming up, but you don't want to give the Cowboys the edge over the Bengals.
I said I will. I said it's harder in Cincinnati, but I gave them that game.
Oh, okay.
But the rest of these games at Atlanta, yes, I give the Redskins credit over Atlanta when they're at home playing Atlanta. But in Atlanta, they're a completely different monster, and we saw that this year. When they played Detroit in Atlanta. When they played in Atlanta against the Giants, they lost, and they got beaten pretty badly. But every other game in the regular season, when they played in Atlanta, they were winning for more often than not. So it's a difficult situation because they could win or lose any of these games. But I'm going to give them right around 9 wins, give or take a couple. And TP, why don't you take this for a second and tell me what you think about what the Cowboys are going to do.
Bro, it's a questionable situation where I'm looking at it. You're saying around Thanksgiving when they play the Redskins, and this is a team that you go up and down about, that it gets easier for them, where they play Philly, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, the Saints, and the Skins again. I don't find that an easier part of their schedule, but I'm going to be optimistic for these guys. Low. This is the low for the Cowboys. I think they have 6 losses on the season. So I say, at worst case scenario, this is a 10-6 win season for the Cowboys. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I possibly can. I don't know the ceiling for these guys. They have a lot of opportunity to make a break in the situation of these games, whether it be the likes of that Saints or Pittsburgh game. I really want to see how the Cowboys bounce back in that one. And a couple of these road games, like the Panthers game, the Ravens game, and also that Seattle game and New York game, all of those games on the road are questionable where they could go either way. But I say 10-6 at worst case scenario. I say best, and I'm pushing it. I say 11-5. I'm not going to go 12-4. If they have a 12-4 season, then I'm tipping my hat to the Cowboys to squeeze the heck out of these lemons and make doggone Cristal an ace of spades, because I'm not even going to say lemonade, but it's a good little schedule for the Cowboys where they can actually pick up a lot of these wins, but it's questionable with the road games that they have, and some of the teams they play against can actually beat up on them, or the Cowboys can stay within these games. But it is truly up to Tony Romo before all else. Okay, I think we still got the panel intact. Justin, what are your thoughts on your schedule with the Cowboys?
You're kind of funny with the you're stretching it with the 11 wins, and you said their worst is 10. That's funny. So you're pretty much like
I didn't want to go 12-4. I didn't want to go.
No, but I'm saying when you're saying their worst game could be their worst schedule, their worst case scenario is 10-6, but you're stretching it at 12-4. I mean, I think anytime in the NFL you have to say that teams are going to be. But then they can be like 12-4, and they could also be, 6-10. You know what I'm saying? For you to say that they only got a game of worst and best, a game in between their worst and their best. That's saying they're gonna be pretty. You're pretty much like just very, very on point with their record. Like what's gonna be between those one and 2 wins.
Well, I'm no Nostradamus. I know that. I'm just saying. Look, I'm going to count the losses. I'm going to count the losses real quick. I'm going to count the losses that I've seen as the 6. The Seahawks game, the one. Well, okay. So let me start all over. In New York, because the Giants get their ring, so that's gonna be a tough game for them. In Seattle, that's 2. The Ravens, that's 3. I actually have Carolina upsetting them in Carolina. That's 4. The 5th game is at Philly, and the 6th game I have is actually Pittsburgh. I think it's still tough for them in Pittsburgh. The one reason why I think they'll get over the hump on the Saints is they've beaten the Saints before in the Superdome. The next time that they play the Saints is the 23rd of December in the new Cowboy Stadium. So I feel like they can actually upset the Saints being at home. So those are the 6 losses that I counted. If it could turn around, make or break situation, one of those games could turn around. That's why I'm saying that they could pick up a win one out of those 6 games. That's why I said that.
All right, we do have a couple of other callers on queue, and I want to get their opinions. And we are rushing through 3/4 of the way through the show, and we still got 2 teams left to go through. So I'm going to bring Walt in first, and without getting too deep into the schedule, I want to know what your thoughts are about the Dallas Cowboys and what you think the record's going to be.
Well, I really think the record is going to be 10-6. I give them a 10-6 season. No worse, nothing less than what they're probably going to do. I think they're going to make the playoffs as a wild card in the NFC.
Okay, so we're going to bring Rudy in here and let him give his real quick. Give us your prediction of the Dallas Cowboys and where you'll find them at the end of the season.
I see probably a 10-6 record. But personally, I'm leaning because I was leaning towards 9-7. I do have them as a dark horse to win the division. But the problem I have with this team, and I've said this before, and I've said it many times before, City. I don't like the mental makeup of the team, and I don't like the way they perform in the month of December. So if Dallas can somehow break out of that hex of them choking it in the month of December, and they can be more mentally ready, at crunch time, I think that they can, win the division. But I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. I'll say 10-6. I'll say 10-6. I'll say they make the playoffs as a wild card. I'm really stretching it.
Okay. So with that said, we've got to move on now. I will give you one last comment on the Dallas Cowboys if you want one. Is there anything that we haven't really covered that you want to say before we move on to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything.
All right, sounds good. Then we shall move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, as far as off season, they had three major additions to this team. They lost a bunch of players, but they lost Asante Samuel from the secondary, who was at that time their nickel corner. They lost Jaquan Parker, who was a very good pass rusher for them. Vince Young, not a big loss. Mike Kafka could easily fill in that role. Owen Schmidt, it's going to be interesting to see what they do about Owen Schmidt. Their fullback. I've always had a soft spot for Owen Schmidt just because of how crazy he was, and that's why I like the fullback. Is just a completely nutso type guy. And lost their number 3 wide receiver, Steve Smith. Outside of that, they lost Winston Justice, not a big deal, and things of that nature. So as far as the guys that they gained, they picked up D'Amico Ryans in a trade with the Houston Texans. I said it before, and the 4-3, the guy's a Pro Bowler, so you have to be aware of that. And they picked up O.J. Otagwe, who's in the later point of his career, but is really kind of the solution, in my opinion, of what they really needed, which was a guy to come into the box and help in run support, especially if they're really hard set on on keeping with this wide nine type defense that they were playing last year. And finally, Demetrius Bell, who is incredibly important. This is the second year in a row they stole a offensive tackle from the Buffalo Bills. There last year actually has an injury issue, which is going to keep him out for likely the entire season. So having Bell come in and be able to replace him is something that is very important to the Philadelphia Eagles, and luckily they're not going to lose that production at the left tackle position. But I'm going to go one question each about this, and I'm going to start with the last man in, and that's Walt. Walt, I'm going to ask you this.
Yep.
Do you think that missing Asante Samuel will be a big deal for the Philadelphia Eagles this season?
I don't really think it really made much of a difference, but Asante Samuel is good, but I really think they should go back to the regular 4-3 defense instead of the wide 9. I think it really served the purpose to do that.
Okay, TP. We all know that the big, if you've been listening to Sports City all last season, the biggest thing that the Philadelphia Eagles had as a big problem was the rush up the middle for a few reasons. First of all, the wide 9 defense has a particular vulnerability in the middle, because if you run through that 1 or 2 hole, you are going, which for those who don't know, the 1 or 2 hole is the hole on the other side of the center. It becomes very difficult for the defensive tackles to cover that area, which leaves a lot to be left for the inside linebacker, which last year was 5th round pick Casey Matthews, and it wasn't getting the job done. So, TP, I'm going to ask you this. Is the additions of O.J. Atogwe and D'Amico Ryans the fix for the interior run defense woes of the Philadelphia Eagles?
This is still a work in progress. I definitely like the addition of D'Amico, but I'm not as sold as Atogwe as you are. You know, they lost a great deal of they lost a great person in Asante, even though Asante doesn't make the plays in the backfield. But man, this is loaded. This is loaded. I really think that they don't stop the run. I think this might actually continue moving forward for the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think that they'll have to shoot their way out of games more or less than shutting people down.
All right, Justin, I'm going to ask you a different question here. If the Philadelphia Eagles do not make the playoffs this season in what is considered the hardest division in the NFL, is this the end of Andy Reid in Philly?
Yeah, I think so. I think if the Eagles don't make the playoffs, he's done. He's had ample opportunities. He's been coach for his team for I don't know how long now, and the best he can get him was to the Super Bowl, which was good if he was constantly doing that. So now it's the time where it's put up or shut up. So he's definitely got to at least make the playoffs and have a nice, a good at least 11 win season to keep his job, I believe. But, I want to go back to that wide 9 real quick. Yeah, at the beginning of the season they struggled, but at the end, if you look at the last, when they went on the win streak, they were one of the best defenses in the NFL. They started to make plays, and they looked a lot better. I think they just needed to get a year out of the system. Their pass rush is definitely lethal, but with the addition, after they removed Casey, Matthews out of that lineup and started making adjustments, they got better. Now they have better personnel. I like Atogwe for the run, and I like D'Amico Ryans. He's a run-stuffing linebacker. He's not a great cover. So this is a definite upgrade from what they had last year, and I think they'll be fine. But, again, their schedule is pretty tough.
Okay, Rudy, I'm going to go with you with this question. The quarterbacking situation in Philadelphia. Now, it's pretty known over the past few years that that Michael Vick has a hard time staying healthy. Now, President Obama just recently came out and said, Mike, you need to slide. And Mike said, you know what, I might want to start sliding. But year in and year out, Mike Vick has been injured. Now, Vince Young is gone. The onus is on either rookie quarterback Nick Foles, which we'll get into during the draft section, and on top of that, Mike Kafka, who is a second or third year quarterback out of I think he's out of Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken. So if Mike Vick comes down, will either of those two quarterbacks be able to fill in the void?
Well, that's really, I have a hard time trying to believe that, but I will say that Mike Kafka did do an okay job in filling in for Vic when he was injured last year. However, upon saying that, I do believe that the success of the Eagles will go as far as Mike Vick can take them. He's really good. I think this is his year to really show everybody that he is and I hate saying this word, elite quarterback. And not so it's tough though. It's going to be tough for the Eagles to keep that engine flowing without Michael Vick in the lineup. But I think the bigger issue for the Eagles is pass protection on their offensive line. If they can protect Mike Vick, I definitely don't think they're going to be able to protect their second or third string quarterback, and that's going to be tough.
All right, so it's time to go through the draft, and I will give you guys each time to comment after I'm done here. But in the first round, they pick up Fletcher Cox, and he's an impressive defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. And this is kind of a theme for the division. 3 out of the 4 teams in this division moved up to pick their first round pick. They all believe they're on the cusp of something great, and really, they all kind of are. So they take Fletcher Cox, who I was kind of surprised they took Cox on one hand because their real big problem was the rush defense. And Fletcher Cox is a pass rusher. He's a guy who can bull rush, he can swim move, he can do what you need to do to get to the quarterback. But as a guy who's going to sit there and anchor and protect a couple of gaps, that's not what Fletcher Cox is. So it's an additional help to their pass rush, absolutely, but that was not their problem last year. So I like the player. I love the player. I'm wondering about the pick and seeing how much of an addition he's going to be for the Philadelphia Eagles. But even how below average Cox is at the not below average, but I'd say average he is in run support, it's still he's still going to be an improvement over the guys they had in there last year. Michael Kendricks was their second round pick. He's a 3-down linebacker. He has good speed. He can close on running backs. He can make the tackle when he needs to. And I expect him to be pushed out to the outside linebacker position, and probably on the weak side as well. And he's also pretty decent in coverage as well. So all those things are going to do really well for Michael Kendricks. I expect a lot out of him in his first year. And on top of that, they have a second-round pick. They picked up Vinny Curry, and I'm amazed this guy lasted as long as he did. This guy could have very well been a first-round pick. They pick him up, I believe, at the bottom of the second, if I'm not mistaken. It could have even been the third round. But this guy is a well above average pass rusher. He has long arms. He has a lot of moves. He has a good first step off the edge. A guy that you should be really looking out for and he may even take Jaquan Parker's spot there on third downs year one. And I believe the third or fourth round, they pick up Nick Foles out of Arizona. This, in my opinion, was their weakest pick. I am not a big fan of Nick Foles. Yes, Andy Reid has a propensity to create something out of nothing when it comes to quarterbacks, but I really have to wonder what is going on with his pick. He has been the spread for his entire career. His footwork is atrocious. It's the worst footwork I've ever seen from a quarterback in my years of doing the draft that actually got drafted in the first 2 days. So I have to really wonder what's going on. He has a big arm. He's rather accurate, but everything else is very shoddy to me. And he also likes to throw the ball a little too low to his wide receivers, which works well for Philly because all of their guys are short. But that's definitely going to have to be a work in progress. Brandon Boykin, the cornerback out of Georgia, good instincts. He gives a little bit too much of a cover to the wide receiver, but he's not going to be the number one or number two guy. At best, he's the nickel or dime guy, and that's going to be good for covering those underneath routes for what he does. And also, he's only 5'9", which if he ever is forced to cover a number one wide receiver, he's going to get jump balled every day of the week. So he's strictly a nickel or dime corner. Following that, they picked up Dennis Kelly from Purdue, and the last guy I really want to hit home about is Marvin McNutt, the wide receiver out of Iowa. This is the guy I also believe went a few rounds too late. McNutt was a very productive wide receiver in Iowa. He's got that height. He can be the real red zone threat that the Eagles have been looking for a while. Yes, he won't be an every down guy, but once you put in that big package in the red zone, he will be effective. So with that, and then finally the last pick that they have is Bryce Brown, the running back out of Kansas State, probably a number 3 running back as well as a kick return specialist. With that said, I'll let you go first, TP. Give us a brief overview on your thoughts of the Eagles in the draft.
It's interesting what they got in the draft right here. Grade-wise, I'm torn in between a B or a C. I'm not gonna give them an A, but man, I go B minus just to be fair enough. I know that they try to help retool that defense as much as possible with all of the issues that they had to start the season out, and what Justin alluded to when they try to make that push to try and make the playoffs late into the season last year. I think that they're trying to gear up to help the defense out. So I give them a B minus to be fair. And then, like you said about Foles, you may be hard on critiquing him, but they have to look at him to be one of the backups because they got rid of Vince Young. They watched Cobb walk out the door. So he's one of the answers that Vic actually is going to continue to run the ball and could risk being injured too. So he has to be ready just in case that situation does happen.
Okay, I'm going to say this now, folks. We are definitely going into archives. So once the stream dies, wait probably another half hour and go and refresh the page. You'll be able to hear the last half hour of the show. Or if you'd like to hear it live, dial 1-917-889-9592, and you'll be able to listen to it live. Or you can hit that click the Skype button right next to our phone number on the top of the page. And we promise we're not going to drag you into the show unless you hit that one button. But I did want to let everybody know that because we still got the Giants to go and the schedule for the Eagles as well. But we are going to go to Justin next. Justin, what do you think about the Philadelphia Eagles in their draft?
The draft, it was a decent draft. I'm not really too interested in talking about the draft, to be honest with you, but I'm more so ready to get right into the Eagles and the predictions.
All right. So I'll keep that in mind. Personally, I think this was one of the better drafts in the league. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting somebody. I'm almost sure that I've forgotten somebody out of their draft class. I just have a feeling. I think Brandon Washington might have been there in their draft class as well. But this was an A draft. This was a top 5 draft in the NFL. Rudy, do you have anything to say about the draft, or can we move on to Walt and then to the schedule?
Not really much. Not too much. From what I've heard that the Eagles did okay, pretty decent at the draft. I'm really more so evaluating. I'm pretty much more interested in evaluating how they're going to be performing this season.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you the chance to go off on this. Is there anything you have thoughts-wise as far as Philadelphia and their draft?
I really thought I give them about a C+. I give them some effort. They tried to address as many needs as they could. I guess you can't get everybody in the draft, but for the most part, I think they did an okay job.
Okay, so we're going to move on to their schedule, and once again, this division got kind of the short end of the stick when it comes to scheduling concerns. But I still think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a team that's going to hit double-digit wins. They start out at Cleveland, then Baltimore visits them in the Link. They play Arizona in Week 3 on the road, Giants in Week 4 in the Link, followed by them going to Pittsburgh. They play Detroit in Week 6 at the Link, followed by a home run against Atlanta. They play at New Orleans in Week 8. This is before Jonathan Vilma, not Vilma, but before Will Smith returns. They play Dallas in Week 9 at the Link. They play at Washington in Week 10. Carolina goes to the Link in Week 11. They go to Dallas in Week 12. Go to Tampa Bay in Week 13. Cincinnati in Week 14. And Washington in Week 15. Go to Philly, and they finish out the season. Okay, I'm missing the bye week in here somewhere, but they play against the New York Giants in Week 17 in New York. And if you ask me, the Philadelphia Eagles have a good chance to probably win 11 games because a lot of their hard games are at home. That gives them a little bit of an edge. They have the team to be able to beat these teams as well. They should probably sweep the Skins, split with the Giants and the Cowboys, and then the outside division, the harder games, like I said, are at home. They'll play New Orleans before they get all their people back. They play Atlanta at home, which should give them that game. Detroit is going to be a tough game for them, but I'm not so sure about. I'm not predicting that game. I'm just not doing it. And and Pittsburgh is a very winnable game for them as well. So as well as Baltimore for that matter. So they could easily be winning 11, 12 games. That's where I've got it. Justin, I hear you laughing in the background. So why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts?
Background. But no, I have the Eagles winning about 10 to 13 wins. I think this team is loaded with talent. They have the defense that could capability to make plays. They just got to go out there and do it. The offense is definitely, not a question. The health is the only question because a lot of those guys are fragile, but they're so fast and they're fun to watch. And I just want them to be together this year for a whole season. I want to see Macklin and Deshaun Jackson run down the field and make plays. Mike Vick showing us what he can do, and Shady McCoy. I love the way he runs the ball, and TP has to love the way he runs the ball because to me, it's not saying he is, but he's the closest thing to that number 20 guy that I've seen in the league. Or he's the closest. He ain't him, but he's the closest. And so TP has to enjoy watching him run the ball. Maybe give him a little flashback here and there, but I love the way that dude cuts on a dime, and this team is they're primed and ready to go. They just gotta put the puzzles together and go out there and just execute and do what they're supposed to do, and stop worrying about what other people think and stop calling themselves a damn dream team, and they'll be all right.
Well, Vince is gone, so they're not the dream team anymore. The one who proclaimed that is now in Buffalo, backing up Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, the dynasty now. The dynasty.
The dynasty. There. See, this guy knows. This guy knows. See, everybody's laughing at me for saying Bills in the playoffs, but guess what? Somebody else believes.
No, he was talking about the Eagles. He was talking about the Eagles. He wasn't talking about the Bills.
Oh.
Sorry to bust your bubble. He was referring to Mike Vick's talk.
We'll let Walt in on this one. What do you think about Philly, and how do you think they're going to go on this season?
Well, first off, I really think the Eagles are going to go 13-3. I think the toughest opponents are going to be the division games. I think they're going to have trouble, beating the Skins twice, Giants twice, and the Cowboys twice as well. I really think 13-3, and then going to the NFC East, the NFC East game, championship game, playing against the Niners, and of course my Niners will win.
I knew that was coming.
And as far as the dynamics of the team, I think overall, I think they're good. I mean, they're going to be unstoppable at certain times, but I really think 13-3.
Okay, TP, what do you think about them Eagles?
It's tough. I don't know if that 13-3 is doable. They have some tough games. Especially if Michael Vick doesn't listen to Obama and he doesn't start sliding too, because for some odd reason something just ends up getting tweaked. And like he was talking about last year, how he gets hit after the throw or after the play just because he's a mobile quarterback. That still is in the play. So I'm going to give them 11-5. I'm stable right there, holding them with 11 wins. I see at least 5 teams that they can lose to potentially on this schedule.
Okay, we're gonna let's see. I think I need Rudy still left on out of the people on the line. Rudy, we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. We got 10 minutes left, so we are going to kind of announce what we think about the Giants and their season before we break it down, just so we can go fourth to first. But Rudy, so how about we start with that instead? Rudy, fourth to first. Go and tell us your ranking for the NFC East.
Man, I'll go New York 1, Philly 1A, Dallas 2, Washington 3. And the only reason why I have New York and Philly there neck and neck is mainly because I think both teams are capable of winning the division. I think those teams, I don't think there's too much that separates those two teams.
Okay. We'll let Walt go next. Walt, fourth to first. How's the NFC East looking up?
I'm looking at Philly, Giants, Redskins, and Cowboys neck and neck, or vice versa. Redskins, Cowboys, or Cowboys, Redskins. Okay,
Justin, we'll go to you next. Fourth to first, how does this NFC East look out?
Well, to me, I'm going to shake things up a little bit. The last place team is going to be the Giants, because they're a bunch of garbage and they're just not what everybody's going to see who they really are. We're going to see who they really are this season when everybody's celebrating the Super Bowl that they luckily got, and everybody was doing that little Mamacita dance. We're going to see that guy, probably catch 9 balls. That's what we're probably going to see this year. Wow. All this garbage. I have to see and hear from these New York Giant fans. It just makes me sick. It makes me sick. So they're last place. Then I'm going to go with the Redskins because I think RGIII will absolutely doo-doo on those Giants 2 times in New York and in Washington. You heard it here first on Sports City Nation. And number 2, I'm going to go with the Cowboys because I think they're just a step below the Eagles offensively. But we'll see. And I'm going to go with the Eagles as number 1. And if you don't like what I'm cooking, get out the kitchen.
Some fire from that young man right there. All right, TP. Maybe a little bit of haterade sprinkle in too. But TP, we gotta ask you, brother. Fourth to first, how does the NFC East shake up?
I'm not gonna put the Giants in the cellar. You can't do that after a Super Bowl win. So I go.
Yes, you can. Look at the history.
Hang on. I'll let you speak.
They did win the division. Ain't no way.
Redskins I don't know how many of y'all gonna be TP, but Redskins fourth, Giants third, Cowboys and Eagles tied with their record, but I think the Eagles get the tiebreaker. So I say the Eagles take the division. Like I said, both of these teams are fighting at that 11-win mark. But I think this is Vic's year to get them back into the playoffs and hopefully can make a push to do something special this season.
Nobody loves the Giants. Only
nope.
one.
We gave him an early Christmas gift last year.
Only one team picks the Giants. Interesting stuff for me.
They lost too many pieces.
For me, Washington is in fourth. They have a much better record than last. They're a much better team than last year. The record's not going to show it that much. With the in third, I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys again. I don't like their coaching. Their team, I like their defensive coordinator, but the rest of the coaching is garbage. I'm not so sure about their mental makeup, as somebody said before. Their secondary is finally in a place to do something right, but their schedule is just brutal. The teams that are really good at home, they play them on the Dallas Cowboys play them on the road. They have the hard, in my opinion, they have the hardest schedule in the NFC East, and you really have to wonder. And it's probably going to come down to maybe a couple of division games and what they do against the Bears. I think everything else is pretty straight up and even. Number two, and missing the playoffs, is the New York Giants. They have a good team. They're a deep team, which I don't think people take into account when they're making their predictions. They're a very deep squad. They play well, especially down the stretch, and they have a bunch of good pieces, but they're not going to beat out the Philadelphia Eagles, who are taking the division. And I was one of those guys who didn't buy them last year. I buy them this year. They have the pieces. There's maybe one linebacker that's a weakness, one safety that's a weakness in certain aspects. But for the most part, they have everything they need on defense. As long as Michael Vick stays healthy, they will win the division between 11 and 9, and they could theoretically win 13 wins, be the number one seed in the NFL, and I will even go one spot better than Walt. I think that they go to the show at the end of the season. But since we got that out of the way, we can go over the Giants off season as we go into archives. I want to thank everybody here who's listening into the program, and everybody who listens to us on archives. I really appreciate every single last one of you. And make sure to check out all the great programming here on Sports City Chefs Network. We'll be here 7 days a week. So as far as the New York Giants are concerned, they lost a lot of pieces. They lost Brandon Jacobs. They lost Mario Manningham. They lost Jake Ballard as well, and then they replaced him with Martellus Bennett. They lost Kareem McKenzie, and they lost Aaron Ross and Deion Grant and Jonathan Goff, their inside linebacker, who subsequently went to the Dallas Cowboys. And you notice that a lot more teams are picking up the old and discarded pieces that other teams let go of. I mean, that just it gives you a little more insight on what to expect from their defenses, and that could help the Dallas Cowboys out whenever they play the Giants. But what's that?
I thought Goff went to the Redskins.
Oh, Goff went. You're right. Goff did go to the Redskins. You're right. I'm sorry. As far as guys they picked up a few really good pieces. They picked up Keith Rivers from the Cincinnati Bengals. He never lived up to the hype that he had coming out of USC, but he was still a very solid player. They picked up Sean Rogers, who is a very good run stuffer, and that should complement a few guys they have very well. And now they've got a lot of big, wide bodies for goal line situations when you include Marvin Austin to the mix as well. Both those guys are very good. And they also, as I said before, picked up Martellus Bennett to the mix. And the tight end position is the biggest concern for the New York Giants offensively, and a little bit of the offensive line as well. But I'm going to kind of ask. I'm going to start with TP on the questions this time. The tight end is known as the safety valve for the quarterback. Now, I watched Martellus Bennett in practice, and he is by far the best one that they've got. But this guy was the number 2 in Dallas and did nothing on the field. And so is this a big concern for the New York Giants moving forward that Bennett, who was a perennial number 2, is now by far their top tight end?
I don't think so. I think Bennett is a big enough target for Eli to hit. And also Pasco is still there, too, and then Pasco got in for a couple of plays also. So they're not going to struggle at the tight end position. And everybody calls Eli elite. I'm not even getting into that argument. Eli is the king of the 5 to 13-yard passes. So all he basically has to do is a simple 5-yard in or out, and he'd be right in target for Eli to hit him. So I think they're still fine. As long as he can make catches and not drop the ball like Martellus is known for doing, you still can't overlook Beckham either. They still have a tight end, too. So they have a good little core at tight end. I know Bennett is the more notable one, but they're just fine at the tight end position.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask you the next question. They lost Mario Manningham, who was the hero of the Super Bowl this season, and now they are looking at Ramses Barden or Jarrell Jerrigan for the number 3 wide receiver spot. Nobody else, maybe Hugh Douglas, but I doubt it. Or not Hugh Douglas. I'm thinking of somebody else. But anyway, is the number 3 wide receiver a concern? And which of those guys do you feel is going to take that position?
Well, I don't know too much about those guys, but I know with the Giants organization, when they bring in talent, they somehow produce on the field. I mean, look at Victor Cruz. I mean, who would have thought that he would, do the things that he did last year? So I'm not really concerned about their wide receivers, at all, period. I think that those guys are well capable of coming in and stepping in and doing a good job because I think the organization has done a fine job as far as, like, drafting players and picking up free agents. So I don't really look at that as a concern at all for the Giants.
Okay, well, Justin, I'm going to bring this up to you next. They lost their kind of between-the-tackles runner, their power back in Brandon Jacobs to your San Francisco 49ers. Now they have David Wilson, Aaron Brown, and Ahmad Bradshaw. All of these guys are smaller, scat-back type players, always kind of taking the reverse route or something of that nature to try to find open holes. Are they going to miss Brandon Jacobs this season?
Yeah, they're going to miss him. A lot of people say, we have Bradshaw. As Giant fans anyway, we have Bradshaw. We don't need him, and where you do need him. I mean, this guy, nobody wants to tackle this guy in the fourth quarter. He might have had a down year, or two, whatever, but he still has a burst. He's still a big guy that can run fast through that hole that you don't want to tackle, especially come a fourth quarter when you have a lead. They're going to miss that. And when Bradshaw goes down, like he always does, they're going to miss it as well. So I think, a lot of people are downplaying it, but he's looking really good in the 49ers camp, Jacobs is anyway. He lost a lot of weight, and they're going to miss that guy that they could put out there to go along with Bradshaw. They're going to miss a lot of pieces, I think. And they're going to have the Super Bowl hangover. They're not going to be the same team. That Knicks injury, I think, is going to bother them. I think they're just going to be a different team, in all seriousness. So when I put them in last place, they could easily go third to fourth or maybe even second, but I don't think they'll be the team that most of the Giants fans believe anyway.
And that's true. And I was actually listening to an interview with a member of the New York Post who believes that this is still an 11-win team. But we'll get into that when we break down the schedule and
when we start doing drugs. We'll get into that when we start doing drugs.
Rudy. Oh, and there is one guy that I really think, and I just pulled up the roster, and there is one guy who I think could be that Brandon Jacobs type between the tackles, busting through the line runner, and that's Darrell Scott. That might be the guy that you might want to look at for goal line packages. Just saying. And finally, and we'll go to Rudy for this one. I guess I have a question when it comes to the linebacking core. This is probably the first time that I can remember that I can look at the Giants linebacking core and say, hey, you know what? They've got a bunch of good pieces here. They have Keith Rivers. They have Mark Herzlich, who will be the backup this year. And they have a very good starter. And right now I'm just at a loss for who that is right now. But is this the year that actually, you know what? I'm going to switch up the question. Is the secondary now without Aaron Ross? Now they're leaning on Corey Webster to be the number one corner this year. Is the cornerback position and not the and let's not forget Prince Amukamara, who's their number two corner right now. Is the cornerback position this year the real detriment to the Giants' defense?
It's a concern. Terrell Thomas, obviously, they're still trying to figure out what's up with his knee, because I know he went down during practice. They say they, could possibly tore his ACL again, but we don't know. Witherspoon, I think he's in the PUP list until November. I think he's either in the PUP list or I know he's out till November. And then they don't really have a whole lot of other guys back there, but it is a concern because I know Antrell Roll. I know he's played corner before, but I know he prefers to play safety because unless they bring another guy in. But I know they did draft a guy. The name escapes me right now. I think he came out of Virginia Tech. I think they drafted him, but it is concern because in that division where you have Philly in their receiving core, and Dallas in their receiving core, and I'm not really sure to watch this passing offense, but RGIII he could do some things this year. It is a concern as far as the linebacking core. I think for Giants fans were spoiled by. They were spoiled by having Lawrence Taylor and Jesse Armstead. But yeah, it is a concern.
Yeah, and the guy you were looking for is Jensen Jackson, the safety, and yes, he was from Virginia Tech. Just to help you out there a little bit, but I'm going to skip the draft for right now, and we'll double back to it afterwards because it's not everybody's strong subject. So we're going to go to Zealand first, And then we will double back to the draft after everybody after that, and whoever wants to jump off at that point, feel free. But the Giants start off their season against the Dallas Cowboys, as seems to be par for the course for NFL teams. You know, they start off at home. Their second game, Tampa Bay comes to visit them at home. Then they go on a 2-game road trip to Carolina and Philadelphia. They follow it up playing Cleveland at home. Then they go to San Francisco, followed by being visited by the Washington Redskins. Go on the road to Dallas afterwards. Then they play Pittsburgh coming to town. Then they go to Cincinnati, play Green Bay midway through the season, going to New York. That's important. Then they go to Washington. Then they are visited by the Saints in the second half of the season. Will Smith will be back, but not Jonathan Vilma. And Joe Vitt will also be back, just another friendly reminder. They go to Atlanta, to Baltimore, and finish up being visited by the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll let Walt start off the conversation. Walt, what do you think about the Giants and their schedule?
Wow. Well, I could really see them going 8-8 at the end of the season without making the playoffs. I know they're going to have some tough division games, which they could lose, you know.
They will lose.
Yeah, they will lose. But, you know, and then the rest of the schedule as far as, like, you know, some of those tough games like the Niners, Saints, and some other teams, I can see them going 8-8. I think they're going to have a tough season, rough season as well.
Okay, Justin, go ahead and give us your thoughts on the Giants' schedule.
Point blank, period. I can see them losing every game this season because they're going to be. The reason why I say that is
are you bitter that your team has not won a Super Bowl since 1960? Are you that bitter? Are you that bitter that you have Super Bowl rings in the last 25 years?
Listen,
they shouldn't have got a ring last year. We gave them a gift.
You said 1960.
Yes, that's the last time that the Philadelphia Eagles have won a NFL championship. No Super Bowls, but one NFL championship.
What's your point? I'm not an Eagles fan.
We're Niners fans. Niners.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just haters.
I've never been around.
There's nothing to hate about. I mean, the Giants barely won, you know, the games that they won last year.
Yeah, they were 9-7. They were 9. In all seriousness, they were 9-17. That shouldn't even have been that. They should not have been that.
Look, I know they're a 9-7 team. I know they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. I know that's how the Giants are. That's just the way they play. They play to their level of competition.
Well, the level of competition this year is going to be like every game. Every game is going to seem like they're facing the 49ers, so they're going to lose every game. That's my point. That's where I'm going with it. If you don't like it, get out the kitchen.
Oh boy. Man's getting all hyped, man.
When your quarterback is named Eli, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that. Eli Manning. And then everybody started to talk about he's elite. No. Then they're talking about but then they want to talk about he's elite and this, that, and the third. This dude had one good year and he's elite now. Stop it.
One good year. I'm pretty sure this is his second good year, but we'll move on.
No. This is his first year of being considered a top quarterback. Put it like that. First year.
Smith.
Was it considered?
I can care less. I can care less about Alex Smith. You can go there all you want to. I can give a damn about our team is good enough. I talk about him with you. I don't give a goddamn. You want to talk about Alex Smith? I'll bet you I'll beat you in that contest. Go ahead. You talk about him. I'll talk about him worse. Let's go. You want to do it? Let's go. Because I damn sure don't care.
All right. We've got to move on from the family feud here and move to Rudy. and ask him what he thinks about the New York Giants and their schedule this year.
Personally, I think that I'll say this. The Giants have a very, 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 very tough schedule. They do play every division winner. They did from last year. No, that's not mine. All right, hold on a second. Yeah, this was not mine. This was yours.
All right, we're gonna let Rudy kind of wait on that for a second, and we'll let Walt give his thoughts first.
What, on the Giants?
On the Giants, yep. We just went through the schedule. What's your thoughts? Where do you think they're going?
I give them about 7 and 9, 7 and 9 or somewhere. 7 and 9. I give them 7 and 9. They're gonna have a lot of problems, especially with those division games and the non-division games. I could see them going 7 and 9 and not making the playoffs.
Okay. Okay. So 7 and 9 and not make that's difficult. We'll see if we got it. We'll let you go first, TP, on this. So TP, what's your thoughts? Are the Giants playoff bound this year? Because I think you had them right around second or third. You have them at third, so it's not likely you got them in the playoffs. So what are your thoughts on the Giants?
Those boys are being harsh right now. These dudes are the San Francisco Niner Bash brothers coming around this doggone kitchen like this.
Hey, the Lions might not make the playoffs either.
Hey, I'm not even talking about Detroit. You come around here when we start talking NFC North. I'm not even. You didn't even hear me talk about Detroit at all. So don't even start. 8-8 or 9-7. I'm trying to be reasonable. I don't want to go throw them under 500 like Walt and Justin are doing. Even though I know Justin doesn't think they're going to do the Detroit Lions 0-16 thing. That won't never happen. But I say 8-8 or 9-7. They have a lot of tough games in their schedule. A couple of their tough games are on the road, and I know all of those games that they do play on the road, the tough ones, these guys are going to look at them as a Super Bowl championship team, so they're going to use them as a measuring stick to try and play these guys. So the Giants have to play, some of their best football going up against some of these tough teams, and I don't know if they can do it. And I didn't even know it was this bad as a stat. The Giants were 32nd in the league in rushing yards. So they lose Brandon Jacobs, and not to say Brandon Jacobs is the biggest rusher, but a lot of this pressure goes on Bradshaw, and I don't really know that their stable of running backs actually helps get them off the ground with their passing game. I know their pass game should be there when Nix comes back and Eli starts throwing those short passes to keep the chains moving, but I think this actually could be a problem for the Giants moving forward. So I think that these guys probably may come back with the same record as last year, 9-7 or 8-8, and miss the playoffs after winning the Super Bowl last year.
9-7, 8-8, and they're still in third place. So that means you have the Cowboys winning double-digit games.
I don't know if you were listening to what I said. I said the Eagles and the Cowboys would be tied for the division lead. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Okay.
All right then. We'll see if Rudy's ready to come in. Rudy. Let's hear it, man. What do you think about the Giants this year?
Well, I will say this: the Giants do play a very, very tough schedule. They do have the division winners in the NFC from all last year. The NFC North is very, very difficult. I do have the Giants in the playoffs, but barely, because I will say part of me doesn't want to do this because the Eagles, they're thorn on my side. But I do have them winning the divisions, and Giants making the playoffs, but barely. But the problem I have with the Giants is that they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They play to the level of competition. That's really my concern. I'm really not concerned about with Eli Manning. I am concerned. The biggest concerns I have is their offensive line being able to provide a running game for the running back. And their cornerback being able to defend in the passing game on defense. So I do have them in the playoffs, 10-6, it's very, but like I said, it's very, 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 very tough. It's a very, very tough schedule that they play.
Hold
on. They got a tough schedule, but you give them 10-6.
Here's why I give them 10-6. They're a mentally strong team. I give them that. They know when to bring it to the field when their backs are against the wall. I'll give them credit. I'll give them that. I'll give them credit. I'll give them that credit. But upon saying that, when I say 10-6, I'm not beating my chest about it. Again, they're a Jekyll and Hyde. Like I said before, say it again. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They can miss the playoffs. They can go 13-3. I don't know what this team can do, but I will say 10-6 just to be modest. Because I do see them in the playoffs. I do see them, being able to compete with Philadelphia, but that schedule is very, very, very tough because they got to play San Francisco, they got to play Green Bay, they got to play New Orleans, and they got to play Pittsburgh, they got to play Baltimore. Those are 5 losses. Those are potentially 5 losses right there, and then division games, possibly split. But I do think they will be able to do better against the division this upcoming year than they did last year. But it's like I said, when I say 10-6, I'm not really saying with all that confidence because of the competition in the NFC, as well as the Giants' propensity to play to their level of competition.
Okay, so we got Walt's opinion, we got Justin's opinion, we got TP's opinion. That leaves it down to me. And right now, I currently have them second in the division because of how the schedule works out against their harder, or not their harder opponents, but the opponents that could beat them if they were at home. Teams like Atlanta, who the Giants get at home, like Pittsburgh, that they got at home. They get Green Bay at home. So there's a lot of teams that are the Giants play Atlanta at home or at Atlanta, so that's a game they probably lose. Then they play Baltimore on the road as well. That's another game that they could very potentially lose, but they have a potential to beat a lot of teams on the schedule, and they have a potential to lose a lot of games on the schedule. The range is so high for every single team in this division, but I've got them at a nice solid 9 wins as my prediction. I think they split with most of the teams in the division. I really can't see the Washington Redskins sweeping them again. They just have a team that is built to beat the Green Bay Packers, who might be a worse team this year anyway. Atlanta's the sticking point. Atlanta's going to be at home. That's a difficult team to beat. So is Baltimore. Baltimore could be a really difficult team to beat. And then you don't know what you're going to get out of New Orleans at that point in the season. I don't think they're going to lose all those games that are going to be difficult for them. They're not going to win all those games that are going to be difficult for them. And let's not forget Pittsburgh in there as well. So there's a huge range, but I've got them staying right nice and pretty at 9 wins, and I think that's where Dallas is going to be as well. I think they're both going to be tied at right around the 9-win mark, and then they're going to I guess that we'll have to throw this last question around before we get into the draft, and I'm going to start with you first, TP. In the NFC East, is there a playoff team? I mean, this is a incredibly hard division. I mean, this is going to be a battle from top to bottom. Every single game is a losable game, just about for every team in this division. So, do we see a wild card out of it?
Yes. I think the wild card comes out of one out of the NFC East and one out of that NFC North. That's how I see it. Like I said, this is possibly the year the Cowboys could turn things around. They have a good core, and so many speculations for this team. I think that they do get a wild card out of this division.
Okay, we're gonna bring Walt back into the conversation. Walt, is there a wild card team in the NFC East?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb
and say I think the Cowboys come out of there as the wild card, and the Eagles winning the division.
All right. We'll bring Rudy back into this. Rudy, is there a wild card team in the NFC East?
I said there is, and I say there's at most one. I don't see two.
All right. Well, now it's time to start breaking down the draft, as we've done for every team in this division thus far. And it's only fair we go ahead and talk Giants draft as well. In the first round, they pick up David Wilson, the running back of Virginia Tech. This guy's a cutback runner. He's a lot like Ahmad Bradshaw. Currently, he's taking reps with the number 3 team. That's what I saw in training camp practice. But that could easily change after the first couple of preseason games. It's always been kind of a MO for Tom Coughlin to stick their rookies in pre-preseason as last string players, make them earn their spot. So we'll see after their first preseason game next week when they go to Jacksonville exactly where the rest of these guys stand. In the second round, they pick up Ruben Randall, the wide receiver from LSU. This guy is the guy who's going to be expected to take the spot of Mario Manningham, a guy and that's the one I did forget when I was asked the question before. He's got good hands. He's a decent size. He runs routes very well, and he's a physical type corner. And he can find the holes in the defensive zone rather well. Those are all things that Manningham was excelled at. So this guy's probably going to be his replacement if he's able to come in and have a strong preseason. If not, I expect Ramsey Barton to have that honor. In the third, they pick up Jaron Hosley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech, a cornerback with great ball skills. This guy will likely be the nickel corner starting year one. He can cover rather well. He's got quick feet. He can flip the hips well, and he can find the ball in the air. So it's and the guy can make some game-changing plays every once in a while. After that, they pick up Adrian Robinson, a guy who, considering the talent on the team, I don't really see making the team. He'd probably be a practice squad body. They pick up Brandon Mosley, the offensive tackle out of Auburn. This will be a depth pick. He'll be a development guy, somebody who can play multiple positions. He can kick in the guard if need be. He can play a right tackle, and if your first two guys go down, he could play left tackle, but it would be very difficult for him to do so. Matt McKent out of UAB is another guy who will also be a depth pick. But the question is, I think that he will be another one of those guys who ends up on the practice squad when it's all said and done. And finally, Marcus Kuhn, the defensive tackle of NC State, and with the depth of defensive tackle in this team, I don't expect him to make the team at all. He'll be one of those guys cut, I think. So TP, we're going to go to you first. New York Giants draft. What's your thoughts?
I think their draft was pretty successful. They basically tried to help at the receiver position where they lost Manningham, and also another running back to put into the stable. But they have to improve running the ball. They have to. Just because they're putting people in position and their names may hold a little credibility, they have to be able to show improve on a bigger stage in the NFL. So I give these guys a B+. Just to be fair, I don't want to go A because I despise the Giants just like a lot of people around here. But you got to give the Giants their credit, and the people upstairs know what they're going to be able to bring to this team. So I go B+ with the New York Giants in the draft situation.
All right, Rudy, I'm going to go to you next. It's the last team on the docket. We're talking about the New York Giants, their draft. Interesting draft to say the least. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts is that we're picking up Wilson and Hosley. Obviously, Hosley does help provide some depth in the cornerback, nickelback, defensive back position. Wilson does. I don't say he's going to replace Jacobs because you can't replace a guy like that. But I think it does provide some depth in the running game because Ahmad Bradshaw, he's shown that he cannot stay healthy. I think it's interesting. I know they did address their tight ends, but I know it's pretty. I think it's solid, but I think that I wish they sort of got some depth at the offensive line, and that's mainly because of the fact that they did lose some guys, and some of those guys may not be as replaceable as people think.
Okay, well, finally we're going to go to Walt. Walt, New York Giants draft, what's your thoughts?
I give them an A. I think they addressed a lot of needs that they needed as far as the caliber of players that they picked in the first two picks. I think they're excellent picks. I think that running back also is an explosive running back that can take it the distance as far as a home run hitter, depending on if the offensive line is blocking real good during the season. I thought they had a pretty good draft.
Okay, that leaves it down to me. And I'm not really as high as everybody else is. I give this a solid B-. They didn't blow me away with this draft. They have 3 good players that are going to contribute right away out of this draft, and 3 guys that I'm going to really doubt make the team, or 4 guys that I doubt are going to make the team in the future. So it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde draft, if you ask me. I like David Wilson. I believe I had him as my my second highest running back, or my third highest running back prospect, which is exactly where he went behind Doug Martin and Trent Richardson. So it was a good pick, but it wasn't the style of running back that they really needed, I don't think. So it's going to be more of a depth guy in case Ahmad Bradshaw goes down. Ruben Randall, I think, was their best pick. He was a guy that I had slotted as a late first-round selection, and now he's going to come in day one and as a late round 2 selection, and be that guy who's going to take Mario Manningham's spot, which means that it leaves Ramsey Barden a little out on the fringes there, but I think that both those guys are going to be good players. So and then Jaron Hosley, who we might see a bit of. Actually, I didn't see him taking any snaps at return man, but in a pinch, this guy can play return man. He did rather well at that in Virginia Tech, and also I saw David Wilson taking snaps at that position as well. So all in all, decent draft, did somewhat well, but we are way into overtime, of officially 1/2 hour overtime. So we're going to send it around one last time. We'll let Walt go first. Walt, you were last man in, first man out. So tell me, give me a final closeout, any thoughts you have about the division or anything else you want to say.
Well, I really have nothing to say, but what I do want to let you guys know, I'm happy to be on you guys' show. And TP, thanks for having me again. And my 49ers will go 16-0 and win the Super Bowl next year.
Oh God, cut him off already.
All right. So we're gonna go to Rudy next. Rudy, go ahead and fill us with some knowledge, my friend.
I'm just happy to be on the show. I know it was a little in and out today, and that's mainly because, right now I'm about to move. I'm in the process of moving. But, whoever decided to bring the blowtorch to the building, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to say too much because, like I said, guys are still, defending Super Bowl champions. I know we do. I know it's tough on us this year, but I like our chances. But hey, that's what the competition is for, And I know the kitchen was cooking tonight. Was cooking this afternoon.
All right. TP it was a fun episode. I enjoyed it a lot. NFC East always brings out a lot of emotions in their fan base. So why don't you give us a final closeout, plug whatever shows you got on during the week, and we can close this out.
SportsCityChefs.com. Continue to check out the website, spread the word about the chefs. Awesome show today. Tomorrow I'll be back at it in the morning with Mark Mosley. The Sunday morning brunch, it should get crazy once again. Sports City, you got Walt and Justin came here trying to throw that San Francisco banter around. I know Rudy tried to step up and stand up for his Giants. Wish some Eagles fans would have dove in here and try to get in and get dirty. Some Redskins fans, even though Brock thinks any team out of this NFC East could win the division. I don't know if the Redskins could do it. I don't know if the Giants could come back and do it. I'll leave it to the Cowboys and Eagles. Somebody prove me wrong. But on that note, tell a friend that it's the Chefs again. And if they don't know, San Francisco is not going 16-0. Now you know.
Well, once again, I really enjoyed myself this afternoon. And hopefully check me out next week. But also, Monday, the Fantasy Feast we're having our all-rookie fantasy draft. That's going to be a lot of fun. On top of that, every Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard, I will be there. I will be in the front office with my good friend and co-host Brian Breaking News Hughes. And check us out next week where we'll be covering another division. Is it the AFC North, NFC North, AFC West? We don't know yet, but we'll find out later.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.